Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Thursday, June 22nd, 2017. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. Just got a goodbye kiss from my daughter, so we're off to a good start here. And we're also joined by the lovely and talented Steve Wiltfong, Director of Recruiting for 24/7 Sports. A little bit overcast in the Gem City. How about yourself?
Good morning, Daniel. Eating breakfast here with my son. The sun is already out at 7:52 in the morning here in Indianapolis. It's going to be a scorcher, sun's out, guns out type of day.
The best kind. Let's get rolling here. You wrote an article recently that raised some dander on Bucknuts about Jaden Woodbay and Josh Proctor, two safeties theoretically headed for Ohio State. But the Fighting ex-Bob Stoops could get involved. Kind of bring us up to speed on what you wrote and how you'd pitch it forward.
Well, I wrote that there's some sources on the Oklahoma side that believe that Woodbay and Proctor could end up in the Sooners class, and they feel good about it. And then there's sources around Woodbay that felt that Oklahoma was in a great spot. Now, after I wrote my article yesterday, those sources around the Woodbay camp have changed their tune and now say he's sticking with Ohio State. I just think it's a long way till signing day, and anytime you have committed guys from far away that continue to talk to other schools, it's going to get out there, and so do I think Ohio State's as good as any program in the country of keeping guys in the fold that are committed? Yes. Do I think that Woodbay and Proctor are having dialogue with Oklahoma? Yes. So, we'll see what happens.
I don't get the feeling it's that big of a deal. Truthfully, this is kind of the song and dance we go through, as we discussed off the air. Once we get these guys on campus for the official, I think it's a lock. Just me. Speaking of guys that are coming back up, Bill Kurlick was asking questions in his recent chat about Cameron Babb, the receiver out of St. Louis. We haven't really talked about Cameron as much recently. The first crystal ball to Ohio State was put in by none other than Steve Wiltfong. Has anything changed recently on Babb, and why isn't there much chatter about him?
I'm not sure why not, because he's the number one receiver in the country for 24/7 Sports. We think he's an outstanding player. I've written that he's at the top of Ohio State's board at receiver, and he's been there for the entire cycle. Ohio State got a head start on him. No one's recruited him better than the Buckeyes, and that includes in-state Missouri. Ohio State's coaching staff has done a phenomenal job with him, from Zach Smith to Kevin Wilson to Urban Meyer. And, I wouldn't be surprised if he pulled the trigger when he comes up for Friday Night Lights.
I'd like to hear it. Do you think the success that Ezekiel Elliott had in Columbus has affected Missouri prospects at all?
I mean, I just think it's all a collaborative deal. There's been so many players that have had success. Obviously, Ezekiel was a lightning rod, and it doesn't hurt to have maybe the best player in the NFL, because that's the water he's drinking right now, to be an Ohio State Buckeye grad. But it's Ohio State. It's all just part of the machine, because they win. They have guys that go on to the NFL to be successful. They have a staff that cares about building relationships with prospects that they want to recruit. And then they have a staff that makes it a priority to continue to stay in touch with prospects they're targeting, in addition to keeping the culture sharp as it is in-house. I mean, again, we've talked about the machine before. That's what it is. It's a well-oiled machine. And, if Ezekiel Elliott was just a good college player, Cameron Babb would still have Ohio State on top, because of the on-field success, the relationships he has with the staff, and the stage you can play on at Ohio State, in addition to it just being the largest campus in the country and the things that it brings you off the field. real life Wednesdays, that's a real big deal. I think that was one of the more innovative special things that Ohio State has done, and it just continues to show you all the ways they're ahead of the curve in trying to court their top athletes.
This just is off the top of my head, sort of, but we didn't discuss this one. But now that I look at the boards and what has really caught the flavor of the nutters here, do you think Ohio State missed out on the next Le'Veon Bell when Tavion Thomas committed to Oklahoma?
Well, I think Ohio State has 2 running backs committed, so is there a chance that Tavion Thomas goes somewhere else and is a great player? Yeah, absolutely. But Ohio State, they got their board. They got what they're looking for in young men, and they took 2 really good ones in Brian Snead and Master Teague. And could they have taken, obviously, an in-state kid is what like Tavion would have been low-hanging fruit and had a chance to get a really good player in him? Absolutely. But, Ohio State, it's clear that the guys they pushed for were Brian Snead and Master Teague and Zamir White. So those are the top 3 guys on the board, in my opinion. And so that's, through their rigorous scouting, that's who they like the best. And they're getting 2 out of 3 of those guys. And, maybe Tavion's number 6 on their board, which is, I'm just speculating. There's nothing wrong with being the 6th best running back in the country, But Ohio State, they're recruiting the creme de la creme and landing their top of the board guys. And I'm sure there's discussions inside the Woody that aren't easy when you're splitting hairs over guys. And maybe they weren't splitting hairs in this situation, but the guys that they're juggling on the board at these positions, and then the debate on who they're taking and who they're not, because they're basically drafted, I'm sure is rather interesting.
Interesting question here. If you had to guess the top 3 defensive linemen still on Ohio State's board in the class of 2018, who would they be?
Well, just, I think that they would love to have Jason Owe, Micah Parsons, and Tyreek Smith, and I think that they still have a chance to land all of them. I'd say Tyreek Smith's the best bet to join the class from that group, the defensive end from Cleveland, who was back up recently for camp, and then Jason Owe, they're in the top 2. I've seen some report the leader for Jason Owe, and then Micah Parsons will continue to be a battle. And last I had heard, Ohio State, was in a great position, but from the minute he decommitted, I never ruled Penn State out and have said that I think he stays closer to home, and those are your top 2 contenders. So, we'll see what happens with Micah Parsons, but those 3 are all legitimate guys that Ohio State has a great opportunity to land.
Phil Steele just came out with his top 4. We'll finish with this. Number 1, Alabama. Number 2, Ohio State. Number 3, Florida State. Number 4, USC. Do you have gripes with anyone in there?
I don't. I don't have any gripes. Those would be the ones that Kelly Wiltfong would pick, and not really going out on a limb there. I assume one of those teams won't have the season they are planning to have, but going into the year, looks pretty good on paper for all 4 of those programs.
Yeah, things are definitely looking good for the Buckeyes. I think you can probably template in that top 4 for the near future. We appreciate Steve stopping by. Hope that blast of recruiting knowledge was good enough to hold you over. Have a good one, Bucknutters.
Take care, guys. Thanks.